Okay. We will, of course, allow people who are attending as we can. We will certainly admit them. Good evening. You are attending the Planning and Zoning meeting for the Jeffreys Point Neighborhood Association. As you saw from just a moment ago, the recording of this meeting has just started. The recording of this meeting is hosted publicly on our website, www.jeffreyspoint.org. It is searchable on YouTube. You are not required to be visible on camera. You are welcome to keep your camera off at all times if you would prefer. You may change your name as it is displayed. Sorry, I'm continuing to admit people as I'm making announcements. You may change your name as it is displayed and submit questions through the chat. If you have questions about this recording, we encourage you to contact us at board@jeffreyspoint.org, and we are always happy to help you. My name is Margaret Farmer, and I am co-chair of the Jeffreys Point Neighborhood Association. Rachel Blomerth is asked to not be on camera this evening as she has her recent newborn son with her, and we thank her for being here. And so I will introduce Susan, or ask Susan to introduce herself.
Hi, I'm Susan Huang. I am the vice chair and I will be doing slides tonight. Josh?
Hey, I'm Josh. Josh Schmidt. I am the secretary at Jeffreys Point Neighborhood Association, and I'll be taking notes.
Okay. We unfortunately Andrew Pike could not join us this evening, but we certainly wish him well, and I'm sure we'll see him in August. A couple of quick announcements. The JPNA movie, which was scheduled for this Friday, which is Moana. I swear the rain is messing with us. However, we did decide out of an overabundance of caution to move to Saturday evening. It will still be in Brophy Park. It will still be Moana. The timing with activities starting 7-ish and a movie starting at 8-ish remains the same. Pajamas are welcome, as are parents and anyone else who would like to attend. This is a free movie. A reminder that the JPNA, or Jeffreys Point Neighborhood Association, Free Stuff Day is still on for this Sunday. If you have items that you would like to get rid of, you are welcome to put them outside labeled free stuff, and hope that your neighbors or others will take them. We are advertising this to the greater community with the hope that people will come and take our stuff away. Our goal is to both reduce the amount of garbage that we produce and encourage and make it easy for people who may have a difficult time transporting goods to a donation center to be able to give them away as opposed to throwing them in the trash. Eastie Week is still going on. We know a number of events have been moved from last week to this week due to weather, but there are still a lot of fun events going on. We encourage you to participate. Simply go online and search for Eastie Week 2023, and you'll find a huge list of events that are going on. One of those events is the Taste of Eastie. The Taste of Eastie is scheduled for next week at the Tall Ship, I believe on Tuesday evening. Tickets are still available at this time. So we encourage you to go and have a good time and meet your neighbors. Thank you to also, just a quick thank you to the board and everyone who attended the JPNA potluck on Monday. Throughout the evening, we had 50 neighbors and friends come through. We were able to meet a bunch of new kiddos in the neighborhood and have a good time chatting and meeting one another. So we'd like to thank everyone who had attended and remind everyone that we'll be doing another event this fall. So if you didn't meet your neighbors on Monday night, hopefully you will be able to meet them again in the very near future. A quick reminder that in our August meeting, we do have an election. We have 3 seats that are coming up for re-election, and we currently only have 2 candidates. So if you are interested in being on the JPNA board, we encourage you to come to the meeting and get nominated. It is not required that you have been on a subcommittee or anything in the past. What matters is that you're interested and are passionate about supporting your community. The JPNA would like to take a quick moment before we jump into the only proposal that we'll be reviewing this evening and answer a few questions. We've received a number of emails this coming week about this particular meeting with several questions and concerns would be the nice way to say it. One of those is that this is going to be the only meeting relating to this particular project, and that is not the case. We see this as the first meeting for this particular iteration of the project proposal for the shipyard, the Marginal Street Shipyard. And we expect that this will be at a minimum somewhere between 3 and 5 meetings, potentially more. This will be a multiple month process with the developer and their representatives attending meetings, interacting with the community, presenting information, taking back information, answering questions, making changes and adjustments. We expect that it will take some time, not the rest of our lives, God willing, but this is the start of a conversation. This is not a one and done. That's the first thing. The second thing is that we received quite a bit of comments that this is not a hybrid meeting. And I would like to reiterate that the JPNA is more than willing to go to a hybrid meeting format. However, in order to do that, it takes 4 people to run a meeting here on Zoom. A person to take notes, a person to run chat, a person to run the slides, and a person to moderate. Now, you can make it work with 3, but it works better with 4. In order to add a hybrid meeting option, that means that we would both have to lug a screen and projector, but also set up and run a minimum of, we believe, 2 cameras, 2 microphones, and 2 computers to both manage everything and make sure that people have the ability to understand what's going on in the room, and also for us to communicate with each other. To add in at least a minimum of 1 person, if not 2 people to run that, you're looking at 6 people. And as you can see from this evening, not every board member can make every single meeting. Because of that, because of the sheer amount of time it has taken, we started asking people approximately 8 months ago if they would be interested in volunteering. Specifically for this meeting, not running or to run this type of meeting. It meant that we would only ask them to attend once a month, help us bring things down, set up and take things down. Since we've started this announcement, we've had 1 person come forward and say that they would be willing to make a commitment that every month they would come forward and that they would be willing to do this work. And our feeling was that we needed to have a minimum of a team of 3 or 4 people because you can't expect people every month to be there. So if you are one of the people who would like to have a hybrid meeting, and I know there are quite a few, then we are more than happy to talk to you, and we look forward to hearing from you to volunteer to help make this happen. If people come forward, we are happy to do it. Our biggest concern was that we would make a commitment to go forward with hybrid meetings, and the day would come that we did not feel that we could support them, either from simply just not having enough people attending meetings or something else. And then the question becomes, do we make it a Zoom only, or do we cancel altogether? And as we can see from the 52 participants that are here this evening, there are projects and issues going on in the neighborhood that need to be addressed in a timely manner. So having a situation where we would have to reschedule was something we simply didn't consider worth the risk, so to speak. So we certainly welcome any advice that anyone has or any other suggestions that people have as well. We're certainly happy to entertain those. But as of this moment, if you would like a hybrid meeting, we encourage you to submit an email to board@jeffreyspoint.org, and we look forward to working with you. A quick one more announcement, and then you will not have to listen to my voice for several minutes, I promise. How we are going to handle questions this evening. We did post the proposal that we received several days ago on our website for people to review in advance, and I do know that people have been taking a look at it, which is excellent. We also encouraged people to email in questions to board@jeffreyspoint.org to ensure that we had questions for our presenters, which I didn't doubt, but also so that we could see where people's focus and concerns were. We are going to alternate this evening between questions that were submitted in advance and questions that are submitted in the chat. We are going to prioritize questions that are submitted more than once and questions that are submitted by more than once or are in several different formats. Just a reminder that if we believe that your question was answered during the initial presentation or is answered when they're answering another question, we will move on to another question, and you will be unlikely to hear your question repeated a second or third time. Again, this is the first of what we see as being several meetings, and we do thank you for being here. And with that, I am going to stop talking because it's been approximately 10 minutes, and that's enough. I'm sure that's more than enough for everyone. I am going to address one quick question I do see in the chat. Someone's asking, are comments and questions during this meeting going to be public? or only in the direct message. The chat feature on this particular meeting is set to only go to me, who's going to review them and ask them as part of the meeting. So comments are not visible to everyone else, but the questions that I say out loud will be visible to everyone else, both in the meeting minutes, which will be on our website, and in the recording. And just a quick reminder also that you do not need to wait until the presentation is over in order to submit your questions. You're welcome to submit while they're going on. But again, if they answer them later on in the presentation, we will hold off on them. Without further ado, I am going to move on to our presentation this evening, which is in regards to the Marginal Street Shipyard. A reminder that this is the first meeting for the second proposal. Susan's going to put forward slides, and Sal, are you going to be presenting this evening, or is someone else?
I'm going to start the meeting off, Margaret.
Okay,
And okay, thank you. Good evening, everybody.
thank you.
So nice to be back at the Jeffries Point Neighborhood Association. I haven't been here, Jesus, almost 6 years. First, I want to thank you, particularly the members of the Jeffries Point Neighborhood Organization, for being members, because I know that you really care for the neighborhood. And a little history about the Jeffries Point Neighborhood Association. They've been around for a long time. It's probably one of the strongest neighborhoods organizations in the city, and a lot of strong community activists came out from this association. A little about myself. For those who don't know me, I am a lifelong resident of East Boston. I grew up across the street from Santopios in a little private way off of Chelsea Street called Drake Place. The house I grew up in has been in my family for over 100 years, and my little brother still lives there. I had the honor to serve this neighborhood for almost 12 years on the Boston City Council, and I am the founder of Eastleigh Pride Day, which we will be celebrating our 34th event on August 19th. Please come by. It'll be at Pierce Park. I'm also am the last original member of the East Boston Pierce Park Advisory Committee, having been on that committee for over 30 years. And we've finally, as you can see, construction has started, and hopefully by the end of fall, it will be completed and we'll have the grand opening. Ann and Chuck Lagasse reached out to me over a year ago to get my advice on their project for the shipyard. I have known both of them for many years, having met them at a yearly fundraiser for the Jocelyn Diabetes Center, in which Ann has been a longtime board member. After meeting with Ann and Chuck regarding their project, they asked me if I would be a consultant, and I said no. I said I wanted to be your community liaison so I could work with the neighborhood and be the point person if there's any issues or concerns. I can tell you that the Lagasses did listen to your concerns. They have made changes that I think most of you will like. I'm excited about their latest plans because it really gives our neighborhood access to the waterfront and the shipyard. For those who know me from the city council days, know that one of my priorities was to get our waterfront developed. Growing up in East Boston, I had spent a lot of time on the Boston Harbor. It's where we went to swim and fish. But it wasn't easy for us to get access to the waterfront because most of the properties were fenced and we would have to climb over or sneak under the fence. When I became the city council, I made a priority to get the waterfront developed so our neighborhood could get access to the waterfront without the obstacles that I had to go through as a kid. I think the community working together did a great job on the waterfront. It's an inviting place for the whole neighborhood. In regards to growing up in East Boston with the shipyard, my uncle Al and my cousin Ronnie worked there, and a lot of folks from Jeffries Point. But I remember as a kid, we were not allowed to go in the shipyard. There was a gate and security that kept us out. But I also remember the sandblasting of the Navy ships and the smell of paint in the Jeffries Point neighborhood. It was constant. And even in the late 80s, when I worked at the mayor's office of neighborhood services, it was still happening. I want you to know that I am available to take you on a tour of the shipyard anytime so you can see firsthand what the infrastructure work that has to be done. In the presentation, you will see that there will be community space available for our neighborhood, space that could be used to host your meetings, and hopefully working with the East Boston Museum and Historic Society, we can have a space to share history of the shipyard and the Immigration Center, which was once located in the yard. I look forward to working with the Legacies. Before I turn it over to Marshall with the presentation, I would like to introduce the operator, Ann Legacy, who is on the call. Ann?
Yes. Hi, Sal, and thank you, everyone. Unfortunately, Chuck can't attend right now. He's traveling. He's hoping he's going to get on at the tail end of this call. So, but obviously very concerned and wanting to listen to neighborhood concerns. But I just want to say we're very excited to present this investment plan. We know it's been a long time coming. There's been a lot of tweaking. You know, we've, as Sal said, tried to listen to the community concerns, but we also are trying to bring this shipyard into like the 21st century in terms of marine industry trades. That's all I want to say for now. And I like what Margaret opened with, saying this is the start of our conversation. So, that's the way we view it, Margaret, too. So, and I just want to say thank you all for attending. And you're going to listen to Marshall Greenland, who is our general manager. So thanks a lot. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Sal, and thank you, Ann. Thank you to the JPNA board for having us, and thank you to everyone for taking the time to be here tonight. We're excited to share our plan with you here and show some of the changes and progress that we've made. So with that, I'll jump right into the introduction. We can do next slide. History of the shipyard. Jeffreys Point shoreline and current Boston Harbor Shipyard and Marina builds on nearly 2 centuries of shipbuilding along the East Boston shoreline, spanning from the Simpsons Dry Dock Company in 1853 to the Bethlehem Steel Shipbuilding and Dry Dock, and then to the active shipyard and marina that we are today. An important and historic source of economic activity here in Jeffreys Point since 1853. It has been continuing to provide jobs and economic development for East Boston. We operate within the East Boston DPA, which was created in 1978 to protect water-dependent industrial uses and promote working waterfront jobs and businesses such as those provided here at the shipyard today. A couple pictures down here, one from the 1850s.
Hey, Marshall, could you lean towards your microphone just a little bit? I'm getting some notes that you're a bit muffled.
Okay, how's this?
That's a little better. Thank you.
Okay.
And you have about 25 minutes.
Okay, great. Next slide, please. East Boston DPA. What is a DPA? DPA is a designated port area. DPAs are land and water areas with certain physical and operational features that have been identified to have state, regional, and national significance with respect to the promotion of water-dependent industrial uses. Purpose of the DPA program is to promote and protect water-dependent industrial uses, and DPA state policy seeks to preserve and enhance the capacity of DPAs to accommodate water-dependent industrial uses and prevent the exclusion of such uses from tidelands within DPAs. Next slide, please. Economic impact. Boston Harbor Shipyard Marina is a waterfront mixed-use facility supporting primarily maritime industrial activities in the East Boston designated port area. One of the few remaining facilities successfully supporting the commercial marine and working waterfront industries in East Boston and Boston Harbor. We're a 23-acre facility and home to more than 30 local businesses. We're also a full-service marina, vessel fueling, 2,500 linear feet of commercial berthing, a restaurant, cider brewery, and arts and cultural attractions. Current economic benefits of the shipyard, we support 450 jobs directly in East Boston community. And as mentioned, are home to over 30 local small businesses. And Boston Harbor Shipyard Marina tax payments provide significant support to city and state budgets. Future economic benefits from this investment plan will include a $12 million investment in facilities and infrastructure, creating an additional 100,000 rentable square feet for 12 new East Boston businesses, with an estimated 100 additional jobs. Supporting East Boston's history and tradition in shipbuilding and repair by positioning the shipyard to compete in future maritime industries. Next slide, please. This is just a tenant map. This presentation will be posted on our site. I don't think that I need to post this or go through this. Next slide, please. These are our commercial berthing tenants. Same thing. Feel free to go through these when it's posted on our page. Slide, please. Margaret, if you'd like me to switch to my laptop for better sound, I can do that.
Whatever you just did right there was really good. But yeah, when you're facing the camera, you're a little muffled, and I've gotten a couple of text messages about it.
Okay, how about this?
Yeah, that's better. Thank you.
These are some images of our tenants. Harbor Fuels, fuel vendor in the Boston Harbor, Sea Machines, Marine Technology, Blue Atlantic Fabricators down east, Demi Offshore, their U.S. headquarters is here, Boston Seatow, Seabiscuit, Windy Films. Next slide, please. Boston Harbor Shipyard community involvement. Community support. Boston Harbor Shipyard Marina is committed to its support and involvement in the East Boston community. It's continually supporting and promoting local partners, businesses, and community groups. And we're actively supporting Harbor Arts, Seawall's Mural Project, ICA Watershed, Piers Park Sailing Center, Zoomix, and others in East Boston. We've also been hosting annual community events such as Marina Movie Night and Kids in Boating, which have both been very popular and well attended. We really enjoyed putting those on. Future improvements include providing new amenities for neighbors and tenants, including an extension to the public harbor walk, open public spaces, and a container village for small local businesses. We'll also be improving pedestrian connections through the shipyard and to the waterfront with designated pedestrian and bike lanes. Developing an updated traffic management plan in partnership with Massport and the City of Boston to continue to improve traffic flow, congestion, and parking conditions. Next slide, please. Some images here, community for public art. We've become a bit of a public art destination. People can walk through the shipyard and view public art for free. We have the Harbor Arts, which operates out of here, the kind of famous local fish, and some of our mural projects, which have been very popular and we hope to expand, as well as the ICA Watershed that continues to offer great programs for community events throughout the year. Next slide, please. Community events, some images here from Marina Movie Night. This was from this year. We showed the new Super Mario Brothers, which was well attended by all ages, a lot of families. It's a great event. The weather held out for us, so we were happy for that. As well as Kids in Boating, we did in June, which has been growing year over year. We do that in partnership with the Mass Marine Trade Association, and we also do it at Charlestown. Next slide, please. Okay, so now that we give a little background on some of our tenants and public events, I'm going to jump into some of the details of the proposed investment plan. I'm going to start with our general goals of the plan. Boston Harbor Shipyard Marina intends to grow the local East Boston economy by creating jobs and building a skilled and diverse workforce as representative of the community. We will promote and protect water-dependent industrial uses, including vessel hauling, maintenance and repair, water transportation, and offshore wind support. We plan to upgrade the dated infrastructure of the shipyard to improve safety, accessibility, efficiency, and climate resiliency, and further establish the shipyard as a place for the community to gather and enjoy by creating public access and designated community spaces. Next slide, please. The investment plan guiding principles. So this is an overview of some of the things that we hope to achieve and the principles that we will follow for all aspects of the investment plan. Economic is to support and grow marine industrial tenants within the designated port area, create new jobs to support a skilled and diverse workforce. Infrastructure and environment. We will remain at the forefront of environmental innovation and support new ideas to improve resiliency, make significant investment in repairing the shipyard's waterfront bulkhead and piers, and build on green initiatives such as solar panels, vehicle and vessel charging stations, constructing new buildings engineered for future coastal flood resiliency guidelines, designing for climate impacts when renovating existing buildings, reducing heat island effects by adding trees and greenery throughout the facility, and providing shade structures for visitors and employees, and implementing innovative nature-based resiliency practices. For community, we will improve community access with the new harbor walk and designated pedestrian and bike lanes, create a community destination with a container village for food, retail, and art from local vendors, showcase the history of the site by creating exhibits on immigration and shipbuilding, install historic informational signs throughout the shipyard and harbor walk, and designate a community room to be utilized by East Boston community groups while continuing to promote and support public art in the shipyard. Next slide, please. Okay, so here is a visual overview of our investment plan. I'm going to touch on a few of the general areas, and then we'll get more into them in following slides. On the left here is the existing plan, and on the right is the completed investment plan. Here we have the container village on the top left. Will be on the west end of the shipyard with direct access to the new harbor walk. The marina investment will include 150 new boat slips with wave attenuators to protect against storms and flooding. And the shipyard will be expanded for vessel maintenance, storage, and repair facilities with new tenant buildings and new travel lifts and significant infrastructure improvements to support better operations within the shipyard. Next slide, please. These areas of focus, the three main areas of focus to achieve this plan include infrastructure investment, tenant space, and public access. The shipyard infrastructure is over 100 years old and has received little investment in many decades. Investment in costly waterfront infrastructure upgrades are critical to future success as a marine industrial facility. And these investments will result in improved ground conditions, parking in roadways, utilities, bulkheads, piers, and public areas. For tenant space, existing buildings and tenant spaces date to the early 20s and 40s, 1920s and 1940s. Renovations of existing buildings are needed to ensure preservation of those buildings and to remain functional for modern uses. New buildings are required to meet the demand for current marine industrial needs, and we will be investing in those upgrades to existing buildings and adding over 100,000 rentable square feet with 4 new buildings. Public access through the shipyard is currently mixed with industrial activities and limited by the existing site conditions and design. As Sal mentioned in the intro, the site wasn't designed for public access, and we've been able to accommodate that well, but we hope to improve it. Investment plan will provide expanded and improved public uses while increasing public access to the East Boston waterfront. We'll be constructing a new building to provide space for East Boston community groups and other public uses, and continue to support art and activism. Next slide, please. So here's a list of investment plan project details, which will be expanded on the following slide. The plan areas include steps required to achieve the investment plan goals and guiding principles. This includes infrastructure repairs, investment in new boat lift and equipment, construction of new buildings, marina investment, designated pedestrian and bike access, new harbor walk, and container village. Next slide, please. So this is a more detailed overview of the investment plan, highlighting the different areas and the proposed improvements to public access and marginal streets. Infrastructure repairs will be throughout the site, but the shipyard in the shipyard area here and the existing harbor walk will be much improved. New boat lift and the associated piers can be seen in the shipyard highlighted area, and the new buildings and filling of graving dock for improved operations, which will separate most of the industrial activity to improve public access. The community building, proposed community building, which will be seen more on other sides, is on the east side of Marginal Street in one of the new buildings. And marina investment will be 150 new slips with wave attenuation and in-slip charging, as mentioned. The designated pedestrian and bike access. So we will have marked designated ways through the shipyard for public access to improve safety and overall accessibility, as well as adding the 650 feet of new harbor walk in front of the container village. We also have planned improvements on both sides of Marginal Street. We'll be installing a sidewalk between Piers Park and the main entrance, and adding trees on both sides. Next slide, please. Public pedestrian access. So this image is highlighting a proposed new pedestrian entrance into the shipyard and container village. We also show installation of Marginal Street sidewalk between Piers Park and the shipyard entrance, addition of trees and new sidewalk and other areas throughout the shipyard. The new pedestrian entrance to the shipyard, container village, and harbor walk, and a proposed bike lane. Next slide, please. New container village. The container village will offer additional vendor and retail space with access to the new harbor walk depicted here. Will support local small businesses and restaurants while providing additional neighborhood amenities. Next slide, please. The new harbor walk with the location that was shown in the previous slide will be 650 feet of new public harbor walk with furniture, greenery, and light fixtures. The image on the left and the two images in the middle here are depictions of our newly built harbor walk in Charlestown. And the two images on the right are conceptual images. As mentioned, we will also have designated pedestrian and bike lanes throughout the site, and we'll be providing a new designated community building on the east end of the site. Next slide, please. Marina investment. Constructing a new marina to feature 150 additional boat slips. We will install an innovative wave attenuation system, in-slip electric vessel charging stations, and a designated water transportation dock. Next slide, please. Infrastructure and boat lift. Invest in infrastructure upgrades to improve ground conditions, utilities, bulkheads, piers, and public access. Filling of the old graving dock. raising of deteriorated building 17 and constructing new boat lift piers and upgrading seawalls and bulkheads. Replacing existing boat lift and hauling piers for improved capacity and efficiency, and the addition of a second boat lift and associated piers for larger size vessels. The images here highlight the overall layout of the shipyard, which would improve our operations and keep them more off of the north side of the site, and the addition of the new travel lift piers, highlighting where some of these infrastructure repairs will be needed in addition to the filling and grading dock. Next slide, please. New buildings. As mentioned before, we need to modernize the existing buildings to provide functional, updated, and efficient tenant spaces, and we will also construct new buildings to accommodate the expanded marine industrial uses and associated new tenants. We will be doing this with the addition of 4 new buildings to support the increased demand for marine industrial in the expanded tenant space. Building 1, is shown kind of in the bottom middle of the screen, is a travel lift and maintenance shop to help service the 2 new travel lifts and expanded boat hauling activities there. Building number 2 on the most northerly building at the top of the screen. This will be first floor shop spaces with overhead doors and recording office spaces on the second floor. Building 3 to the right of that, shop spaces with mezzanine offices providing direct access to vessel repair yard. And also to the right of that building will be the community designated community space with direct access from Marginal Street. Building number 4, all the way to the right, will be a vessel maintenance and repair shed with travel lift access. All of these buildings centrally located around the maintenance and repair yard. Next slide, please. Okay, so the next 3 slides show the progression of the maintenance shed location, which has been refined over a 2-year process involving community feedback. So this is the original plan presented from June, depiction of first building plan location. These dimensions were 95 feet high, 225 feet long, and 125 feet wide, with a 10-foot setback from Marginal Street. Next slide, please. So this is a first revision around February 2022. This revision was intended to distance the maintenance shed from Marginal Street by setting the building back 120 feet from the road. And this is when we also added the community building, which will be connected to building 3 as shown there. So this was set back an additional 110 feet for a total of 120, additional community building. And the dimensions were the same, 95 feet, 25 by 120. Next slide, please. So here we have the most recent revision, March 2023. After further discussion, the building height was reduced by over 30% to further reduce the impacts to the neighboring community. Lowered the building by height by 30 feet, over 30% reduction. The new current dimensions are 65 feet high, 225 feet long, for the 25 feet wide, with a 120 foot setback from the street. Next slide, please. Okay, so next steps. As was mentioned at the beginning of the presentation, we see this as a process, and intend to continue to engage the community and receive feedback. And As Sal mentioned, Sal and I are always available to speak to or give tours of the shipyard. For community engagement, we'll continue to address the questions and concerns. Questions and comments can be submitted directly to Boston Harbor Shipyard Marina. We'll provide contact on the last page, and regular updates and progress timelines of JPNA meetings, and continue to offer those tours. Design, permitting, and engineering. As we finalize permitting and engineering, more detailed designs and architectural concepts will be available. We're committed to improving the facility in a way that is in keeping with the history of the site and the surrounding neighborhood. Traffic management plan. We will be continually updating and improving our traffic management plan to address traffic, parking, and truck congestion through all phases of the investment plan. Traffic management plan will address on-site parking to ensure that all facility and tenant operations have sufficient parking within the facility. Construction. Investment plan construction is projected to begin in 2024 with a 5 to 10 year full build out time. Construction will be completed in 3 phases as outlined on the following slide. Next page, next slide, please. Timeline. As noted, initial phases are to start in 2024, 5 to 10 year full build time. Phase 1 will be site work, preparing the site and grounds for development, filling the graving dock, improving ground conditions, upgrading associated infrastructure, and the installation of the marginal street sidewalk between the shipyard main entrance and Piers Park. Phase 2, shipyard development, will be constructing new buildings, installing new boat lift piers, and investing in new shipyard equipment using updated green technology. Phase 3, marina and container village. New public amenities and improved pedestrian access, 150 slip marina investment, container village and public open spaces with 650 feet of new. Next slide, please.
Oh, Marshall, you need to get closer to the thing again. We really lost you on that last sentence.
Marina and container village. Is that where you lost me?
Yep, that last line or two.
Okay. Yeah, 150 slip marina investment, container village and public open spaces, and 650 feet of new waterfront harbor walk. Next slide, please. Thank you, and now we will open it up to questions.
Absolutely. So just a reminder, I'm going to do a little time check. It's 7:46. Normally we try to end meetings at 8:30. We are happy to go a little bit later this evening. But keep that in mind. I'm going to try to keep asking questions to below 30 seconds to a minute. Marshall or whoever answers questions, if we could ask you to limit your responses to 2 minutes or less so that we can get through as many as possible, we would appreciate that. So a number of questions that were submitted in advance and also through the questions in the chat were in regards to the 65-foot building, which I've been asked to note is 10 feet higher than zoning currently allowed. What is the purpose or function of this building? For future presentations, they'd like us to for you to share floor sections to illustrate what uses would be included in this particular space. Why not break this down into 2 smaller buildings? And then also, why is the position of this building in the lowest portion of the neighborhood? I understand that that's several questions in one. We may need to break it up.
Yeah. Yeah, and if I miss one, just let me know. So the height of the building is specific to the height of a boat lift that needs to go into the building. So the purpose of this building, it's a pretty standard industry practice and design to service vessels in the Northeast. To be competitive, you need to have a covered indoor service area. So everything goes around the ability to get the vessels in there to be able to do quality repair work. And so the height is dictated by the, the size of the boat lift and ultimately the boat in the lift that can get into the building. As far as design goes, we are, as mentioned, we're progressing on design and engineering, so we will share those as we have them. We will have more detailed drawings of all the buildings, and so that should satisfy that. What were the other points of the question, please?
Why is this particular building, why can't this be split into two smaller buildings? And then why is this building being located in the exact location it's at, in the lowest portion of the neighborhood?
Yeah, so a lot of that has to do with the space that we have to work in. So, splitting it into two buildings would, it would not reduce the height, and the width. Again, we need the door opening essentially to be able to bring a travel lift in there when another boat is in there as well. So that's where the width comes from. And then the depth comes again from the size of the vessel that we're trying to fit in there. So it's all about the boats is the dimensions. And then as far as the site location, as shown in the we looked at all sites, over the past few years, or all potential locations. If you look back at the layout of the buildings, this is really the most functional overall layout, and the only real positioning of this particular building that allows us to operate these travel lifts and other industrial activities throughout the whole open area of the yard.
Okay. Who are the intended customers for the building, the large one that you're discussing right now? Could you, commercial vessels, personal use vessels?
Yeah, it would be, the target would be commercial vessels. There is a large market in Boston that currently it can't be served. Tugboats, ferries, municipal boats, Boston Fire, all these types of work boats have to essentially leave the city to get regular service and repair. That's not to say we wouldn't do any type of boat in there, but that's the typical need for this kind of work is those types of commercial boats that are currently in Boston Harbor.
Okay. Will the pedestrian only access gate be open? So for vehicles and for walking access to the shipyard? And we're talking about the gate on 282 Marginal, on the far side, both during construction and after construction is completed.
The east gate, the pedestrian gate.
Correct.
So that gate would remain. We hope we will make improvements to it. We'll widen it for bike and easier access. But the general operation of it would remain unchanged. As far as we don't intend to have vehicles going through it. It would remain a pedestrian gate, and the hours of operation would remain generally the same.
Okay.
And to answer your final question, we don't have any plans to close it during construction. If there were, a day-to-day operational issue with equipment or something, I can't speak to that this far, in advance, but we don't have plans to shut it down for multiple years.
Okay. And then, so this one was asked to be kind of presented the way it is. A container village is an amenity for people outside of the neighborhood, while something like a dog park would be an amenity for people here in the community. Considering your proposal of a container village would increase parking needs in an already strained parking situation, what are your plans to either bring people in not using cars or to add more parking spaces for people to take advantage of what you'd be building?
So Our vision for the container village is for it to be a community amenity. We do not intend or desire for it to be a destination for people outside of the community. We certainly understand the concern that it could be, and given the purpose of that, we are certainly open to community feedback on the container village. We really want it to be a valuable, peaceful, nice place that can be walked through, not crowded, open late, anything like that. And as far as parking goes, with that same concept, we wouldn't anticipate significant travel to this location. If there were businesses in there that required parking, as I mentioned earlier, we do have plans for improved parking layouts within the yard. So that could include something like designated parking areas in the lot directly next to that for customers visiting those facilities. But whether it's container village or anything else we do, to successfully operate the businesses here in the yard, we have a responsibility really to our tenants to be able to park all of their customers and employees. So that will remain unchanged.
Okay. So this is partially a request for your next presentation, and then the second part will be a formal question. They'd like you to include dimensions for the proposed buildings 1, 2, and 3. So they have a better understanding of the size and scope of those for the next presentation. And then also a follow-up on building 4. Building 4 is listed at 65 feet at the side. How high would it be at the peak of the building?
Yeah, it's a good question. So, and certainly we can include the dimensions of 1, 2, and 3. Those will be in keeping with the buildings that they're surrounded by. For building 4, the reason we say height to the eave is we need the 65 feet, as I mentioned, for the boat lifts and everything else. Whether or not it's a pitched or flat roof, we originally at one point had proposed a flat roof, trying to reduce the height to keep it at 65. We have received some feedback from the community that a pitched roof would be more desirable. So we're happy, we can do pitched or flat, but if the pitch of the roof doesn't have any impact on the building underneath. So if it were an issue of pitch versus flat, that's where the height difference is.
I think the concern is what is the height of the building at the highest point? Like if it's the peak, it's 65, or is it 65? Here at where it comes down is
so it's 65 to the eave, which is where if it's a peaked building, the eave is where the peak starts.
Wait, you mean like down here? Put your hands in a formation.
So if this is a peaked building,
yeah,
the eave is right here.
So then how tall is the building then? Because that's not the highest point of the building.
Right. If it's a flat building, that's what it is. So we will
but you
have.
Still haven't answered my question.
Yeah.
Then what's up here? What's the height of the building?
We have not designed the pitch of the roof. It is a relatively new change to pitch the roof. So I will get that answer to you. The height of the height of that depends on the pitch of the roof. So we will have our engineers get us those measurements.
Okay, so to clarify, the highest point of the building is above 65 feet, but you don't know how far.
Correct.
Okay, that's okay. Just trying to work it all out there. This has come through the chat several times, so I'm gonna ask this one I'm gonna move this one up. What mitigation for noise, traffic, and dust during a 10-year construction plan do you have intended to put in place?
Yeah, for that, I mean, we would follow, certainly for noise and general construction practices, we would follow all of the city requirements and practices that address those concerns. At this point, I don't, I don't have detailed construction practices other than that, we know those exist for a reason, and we would certainly abide by all of them, specifically the noise and the hours of operation.
Okay. So just a reminder, some of these I'm going to make aggregate because there are several questions that come through that are very similar, and some of them I'm going to read directly. You're proposing to expand marine industrial uses while there are serious discussions of decommissioning marine industrial spaces on other parts of the Boston Harbor. Keeping that in mind, what is the benefit of doing this expansion, and what is the benefit of doing this expansion here, directly abutting a neighborhood community, as opposed to putting it somewhere else where you would be farther from direct abutters, is I think what they mean to say.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like maybe it's a broader policy question about DPAs, but we operate within a DPA, and that's that's the zoning that we operate within. So that's what we work within, I guess, would be. I don't know what the future DPAs hold, but yeah.
Okay. So again, this next one is half request for a future meeting and half specific question. They're asking for a future meeting that would be what if you could break down the proposed phases and timeline of each phase for construction, and why a 5 to 10 year construction period is needed.
Yeah, and absolutely. As we define those steps further, we will share it. We'll be available to come back to the monthly meetings, available to share information with JPNA if they want to send it out to the community. But at this point, it's just we're defining those parts of it, of the plan.
Okay. We had several emails that came in supporting Harbor Arts and asking you to be more specific about how you see what your vision of expanding arts specifically in the shipyard would look like, and if you know what their next proposed project that you've approved is.
Well, we're currently working with Harbor Arts on the structures within the yard. We're always looking to support Harbor Arts in sourcing and building new public art. We happily devote time and resources to help with the location, the maintenance, the improvement of the existing art. And as far as what the next projects are, we have some general kind of upkeep going on this season, improving the existing ones, and hopefully we'll get some new structures next season.
Okay, and I had a quick follow-up question in the chat. Someone asking for you to commit to or what will happen to the beautiful murals. Will they ensure that they'll be maintained and kept, the ones that are already installed?
I mean, yeah, we fund Harbor Arts or support Harbor Arts, and we like the murals. That's why they're there. So, and yeah, we have no plans to. If anything, we've gone bigger with them. So I mean, with the Down East and the other big one on the powerhouse. So and those buildings, we don't really have plans to change. So
okay, excellent. So I'm gonna. We received a number of questions and a number of emails regarding the fact that portion of the shipyard is potentially a historic landmark. The building that the project proposes demolishing and the dry dock it proposes filling in was owned by, this will take more than 30 seconds, I apologize, was owned by James E. Simpson and was the site of the building of the notorious slave ship, the Mary E. Smith. It is a place of historic significance of America's darkest chapter. The dry dock itself was also the first of its kind with a patented watertight design. Neighbors have recently filed a petition with the Boston Landmark Commission to review this site. There are several questions for this. Number one, someone did ask why this site has not previously become recognized as a historical landmark, and I didn't know if you had any insight into that. And also, would you allow the Landmark Commission to review or to conduct a review prior to the demolishing of this site?
So as far as why it hasn't been, I'm not sure, other than that it's presumably just been a continually evolving industrial site. As far as the building 17, which is unfortunately in disrepair, on top of being just a no longer functional building, and unfortunately the graving dock, which is a great historical story that a lot of people in the industry are aware of, the history of graving docks. Unfortunately, that one was rebuilt in the 40s, so it did do away with that very cool design from Simpson. But we are proud of the history in the shipyard. We have absolutely planned to do all of this development in keeping with the kind of historical architecture and feeling of the shipyard. We also intend to invest in signage along the harbor walk, which will highlight and tell stories about the history of the site. And on top of that, we hope to highlight the history of the site across, back to 1853, which it's been many different things, and there's many different stories to tell between shipbuilding and immigration and everything else. We hope to be able to highlight that with a sort of revolving museum or presentation in the community room that will hopefully be curated by a local group. So we definitely want to lean into the history of the site. We're proud of it. We live in the maritime industry, and that's one of the main reasons that we want to see the site continue to succeed as it has over over all these years as a thriving industrial site. As far as the commission or review, I'm not aware of that process, so I'll have to get back to you on that. I don't know much about that process.
Okay. I continue to have follow-up questions in the chat about building 65, and in particular, how the current location for the building was chosen. In particular, despite the greater impact this tall building will have on the much smaller residential buildings in the area, compared to those that sit much higher on the hill to the west. So
Yeah.
if you could just kind of address that a little bit.
So I guess the question is two-part, because one is operational, but I think it seems like the question's more focused about the buildings behind it. So when we determined the general dimensions of the building, we did multiple sightline studies from all points of the neighborhood to determine what location would impact the least amount of people. So we had an architectural firm do thorough site studies for each possible location of the building. And the current situation is what had the least impact on sight lines regarding the number of homes impacted in Jeffries Point. So as far as the impact on the hill and everywhere else, that's why the specific location was chosen there, because it was determined that it would have the smallest number of people impacted.
So the chat just went like this. And the general consensus seems to be that people would like you to share that study if at all possible, and share also the sight lines that are contained in those studies at a future meeting.
Absolutely.
Okay, and then another follow-up question of how many people would be directly affected by moving the building to the west. So I think that quantifying that a little bit would be extremely helpful, is what I'm going to take away from that.
Sure.
So we have, I see your questions in the chat about asking us to go back and follow up on traffic, but I'm going to ask a slightly different question first, because we have had several questions about what improvements or responses would you be planning to do about the increased foot traffic that would be coming into the community, and how would you increase safety on a street that is continually seeing a large number of trucks and traffic on it on a continual basis?
So is that specific to Marginal Street? Is that what that?
Yes, yes, specific margin, and I would say to the entrance that's closest to Maverick Square.
Okay. Yeah, so I guess that relates to some of our traffic planning. You know, what we're doing specifically, that, you know, we're trying to touch the areas that we can impact. There's, you know, as everyone knows, there's multiple levels of issues in the city. We have engaged our own consultants, as well as the city and Massport to help us and to help the overall community. People may know, I think it's BPDA is also engaged in a large scale planning that's going to affect the roads and traffic conditions. So we intend to remain involved in those. We have currently been working to update replace missing truck route signs. So that has been ongoing. We found that many of the signs marking truck routes were gone, and other options that we are also either exploring or engaging in is some techniques that Mass DOT uses for basically technological assistance, outreach to navigation companies to better update truck routes. One of the big problems in East Boston, also, as many people may know, is that roadwork construction pops up with sometimes little warning and no detours and no details. So that's work that we have to do with the city to help improve those situations. That seems to have led to a lot of trucks having nowhere to go, and then they end up on a small road and get stuck. Many of those trucks end up down on Marginal Street, and they are trying to get to the other side of East Boston. So we see a lot of lost trucks. So that's, you know, part of the things that we can do is to help promote and inform companies about the truck routes, and pretty much try and influence with other community people, the city to help the mess that's the roads. I mean, I don't think anyone would argue that, you know, some of the intersections over the past year, it would be, you know, very difficult if you're a truck, then that road's all of a sudden closed. So we need better planning, better notification, and ultimately being involved in the new designing of the roads to make sure that these things are considered. And that's why we are communicating with those groups that are doing that designing.
Okay, I'm gonna interrupt for like half a second here to provide a little bit of historical context to people. The JPNA has been advocating for a traffic study to occur specifically at the intersection of Orleans and Marginal. since before the first Roseland building put a shovel in the ground. It has been a continual game of hot potato to see who would pay for it. Massport wanted Roseland to pay for it. Roseland thought the city should pay for it. And the bad news is that there's going to continue to be construction on Marginal Street, because once you have Pierce Park Phase 2 completed, we're going to move to Pierce Park Phase 3. Pierce PAC, which is the committee that oversees the Pierce Parks, also requested a traffic study, which again went through a political round of hot potatoes. So I'm going to take this opportunity in a very selfish manner to ask if you would commit to funding a traffic study, which would allow us to put pressure on Massport, the city, the state, and the utilities to better coordinate, because they would be a better understanding of the needs of the traffic that comes in and out of Marginal Street, because we would be able to understand how much it is when it comes in and where it's coming from and going to.
Yeah, well, I think it's certainly a topic of concern. I'll best I can tell you is that, we can discuss it, go back, talk to those groups you're looking at. I can't commit here to funding something like that. I can commit to, getting back to you on an answer for that. I wasn't aware that I thought that the Plan East Boston had done a traffic study in that area.
Not of that particular intersection. They did do some traffic studies, as particularly around the squares. So in the Maverick Square area, yes, but not in that corridor. So close, but not what we need in order to be able to put pressure on the city, the state, Massport, and, including the Tall Ship and Roseland development, to understand how many people are coming in, when they're coming in, where they're going, and why.
Right. Well, we can certainly look into what something like that would entail, and follow back up with you.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'm putting that one out there myself. So back to building 65. There is concern that the operations that would be going on in the building would potentially compromise air quality and block more sunlight. Can you speak to the safety aspect of working on boats in an industrial setting in the shipyard against a residential community?
Well, I mean, the most I can speak to is, the experience doing the work that we already do. We have strict environmental and industry practices that we have to follow. It's not new work, so this isn't anything different, but it's a known concern that's out there, and there's certainly many regulations and policies and safety measures to control those types of things.
Okay. And I think this question is very interesting, actually. They state that they appreciate that you stated that this is the first of many planning meetings regarding this proposed project. They're concerned that slide number 4 of the presentation seems to present the shipyard is an already thriving business. And they're asking for your commitment that this means that because you're engaging in a series of meetings, that you would be willing to make changes based upon community impact.
Well, I think we already have. So hopefully that can answer that question. We understand our that what we have to operate in. We're zoned marine industrial, and that's what we have, and we are aware that next to us is a community, likely built up in the past by employees from that. So it's an interesting design, but the history of it makes sense. But as far as we understand that, we know that we really do enjoy interacting with the neighbors in the community. One of the best parts of this is the community and everyone walking through here. We want to have good relationships. We enjoy putting on the community events. We enjoy seeing people come down. So yes, we are going to continue to engage. We'll see what the future requests are. We hope that, some people have taken advantage and we hope that more will. I'm always here. Sal's always available. Come down, we'll show you around, we'll listen to you. And we're going to continue this process.
Okay. So this is more of a statement than a question. But we have someone in the chat who's stating that they have a preference for something that is more along the lines of a dog park or a ferry terminal, something that would benefit the community as opposed to just being another tall ship destination.
Yeah, and so that's noted feedback. That's the first time we've heard the dog park thing, but we're certainly, I think that's valuable feedback that we can go back and discuss. As we mentioned before, when we designed this or came up with this idea, there was no tall ship. So that's we understand. We can say that's not the plan, but the tall ship is here, and some people love it, some people don't. So that's an image that we have. We don't want some big, we don't want some container village that is hugely opposed. So, we're happy we want it to be something that the community likes and benefits from. So we take that feedback, we would take other feedback, and we will certainly discuss it.
Okay. This one's very specific, so I'm going to read it directly. In an earlier meeting, Marshall noted that the plan for the container village might be canceled if it's cost prohibitive based on how the earlier phases of the project goes. Additionally, only $1 million was allotted for the container village compared to $15 million for the ship repair building. Is that still accurate?
I don't know what meeting or financials that's in reference to, but I'd say no, that's not still accurate.
Okay. So, and this is a request. We have a statement from someone saying that they appreciate that you're here at this meeting. However, they're hoping that you can make your plans more well-known to the residents, potentially flyering at each residence. They said that many of their neighbors were unaware that these plans were going on and are upset that they either hear about it late or were not able to attend. And they also point out that not everyone has access to Zoom, or is able to attend JPNA meetings. We are certainly happy to do our part here at the JPNA. But if you have any suggestions, Marshall, for way to involve more people, we're happy to hear them.
Yeah, I will say that JPNA is a tool for us to reach the community, and we're appreciative of it. It's hugely valuable. We do other outreach to other community groups within East Boston to try and expand our reach. We're going to continue to do that. We will be posting this full presentation on our website, so anyone can access it there. And we will also post updated versions in the future, as well as provide them to JPNA and other groups. Again, open to suggestions. We're not opposed to, the other ways of spreading the word. We're just doing what we know how, pretty much.
Okay. There's a point that people are recognizing that the Legacies do own several shipyards in the area. They're wondering, this particular shipyard abuts a thriving residential area. What is the impetus to build the large building here as opposed to a different shipyard that might be farther away from residents?
Well, I think that, each property is its own individual entity. So we look at what the value is here and what this site needs to succeed. So it's something that works here, will be a benefit to this site. Multiple other reasons that it can't or wouldn't at others, but I wouldn't, I guess I wouldn't relate the rest to this project.
Okay. And then I know we only have a few minutes left, so this may turn into a little bit of a speed round unintentionally. We did have another question asking us to follow up on the parking, asking specifically, asking people to address if you do have an overall parking plan, and how do you attempt to respond to increased parking in an already strained neighborhood?
Yeah, so we have been and will continue to use what are considered traffic management consultants, but they do parking plans. These are things that people used for any commercial site with large parking. What they'll do is design the sites and roadways for the most efficient use, turning radiuses of trucks to reduce congestion in the yard, which can at times have an impact on marginal streets. So that should mitigate some problems. And just continuing to make sure that we can park all of our uses on site, and that's designated the needed number of spots to tenants, and not going beyond those uses.
Okay. This is a request for a future meeting to please bring a shade study for building 65. We've had a specific request for that in the chat.
You're building 4, I think you're referring to, right?
Yes, I think they mean that the building that's 65 feet tall,
Right,
so
right.
building 4. But they're asking for a shadow study for that particular building. So
Yep.
as you're making the list of things for the next meeting, that should go on there. In regards to the container village, some container villages are temporary. Do you see this as being temporary or a permanent fixture? Do you see it being open only seasonally or 2 or 3 seasons? And then if it was opened, would it be would local businesses receive first right of space? Those came in really quickly.
Yeah, I think that the uses would be defined as it goes. I know some of them are temporary. I guess we would see this as permanent or somewhat flexible, like you can move the containers around, but temporary would indicate that it would be removed in a couple years, and that's not the case. So, and when I say the uses to be defined, seasonal or not seasonal, it depends on who we can attract and what the demand is in the winter. If it is only seasonal, that's probably still a benefit. If the businesses can operate year round and want to, that just has to be, those are business decisions really from the vendors. But we don't have any defined restrictions that we've defined at this point, as far as seasonal, not seasonal, permanent, not permanent. So I know they pop container things up somewhat like they did in South Boston. That's not what this is. Like, these will be installed and stay there. As far as the local business question, I don't know if that's, I don't know what the legality of that is. If you can only allow small or businesses from one area or not. We will certainly promote and do our part to reach out to local businesses and try and bring them in. We would really like to see some of the retail, some of the art, restaurants, coffee shops. We would love to see some of the local East Boston businesses be able to set up in there. That is definitely our goal.
Okay. And then what are your plans to mitigate the loss in value of the properties that used to have water views on Marginal?
I don't think I don't think we have a plan for the values of different buildings other than just the existing shipyard site being unchanged over the nature of the site over over 100 years. So presumably that is no change.
Okay. We have a request in the chat to also add that they need shade and visibility studies on every proposed building, 1, 2, 3, and 4.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
your list, add that in there. Someone is asking if you could confirm, they saw that you're adding 650 feet to the Harbor Walk. Could you confirm that the plan is to connect the Harbor Walk from Pierce Park to the other side of Marginal Street, effectively like linking the chain on this side of the harbor?
Well, I can't speak to that because it is not up to us whether or not it is connected, but it would certainly be something that's possible. But that is all the people that manage Pierce Park and everything else would need to weigh in on that.
Well, I think the issue is whether or not your vision, I mean, it seems that it extends in front of the container village. I mean, people are going to walk across expecting that it's the Harbor Walk and connecting to the other side anyway. Is the plan to design something that's, visually meant to be a path that goes through the shipyard that does that?
Yes, which is also why we're connecting or making the roadside pedestrian access, because to the other side of Marginal Street to connect to those harbor walks. So yeah, that is our vision.
Okay. We've received this question several times, both over email, and then I've been reminded in the chat that we did not follow up on it. So there's a question in regards to the fact that there is a 55-foot height limit in the underlying zoning. Are you aware of this underlying height limit? And how do you feel that with the eve of the building being at 65 feet and the building itself going higher, how do you address this?
So as far as those specific zoning laws, I can speak to this plan and all of our previous plans that none of our proposals would require any sort of variance or changes in height for what we're zoned and located at. So we don't intend to do anything above and beyond what we're allowed to do here.
Okay. I know we're at 8:30 and I do see that we're starting to lose people. I do want to ask one question that just came in because it has also been echoed several different times. Have you decided on a particular aesthetic of the buildings that you'll be building? Will these be viewed as like massive warehouses, or will attempts be made to make them look either historic and or a part of the community?
Certainly, there are going to be it may have been me, but I'm back. So yeah, just to wrap up that question, we as I mentioned before, we very proud of the history of the shipyard. Everything we do will be well thought out, well designed. Beautiful architecture. We have a great, reputable, experienced architecture firm, Brunner Cott. They do a lot of historic waterfront type of projects. They have very impressive work that they've done, and we're excited to build something that we think is not only going to be fitting with the current shipyard, but improve the overall facility, because as beautiful as it is and historic as it is, I mean, the buildings are falling apart, and if we don't repair them and make investments, it won't remain to be that way. So I think not only are the new buildings going to
So I'm going to ask you to do one thing, and then we're going to do one final question, then we're going to wrap up because I'm concerned that we're going to lose connectivity. We have a request that asking you and the members of the team to provide your contact information so that we can share it in the chat in case people wish to contact you directly with questions or have concerns. I'm going to answer the question that also showed up in the chat that we have not scheduled the next meeting yet. We are holding off a teeny bit to see how long it's going to take the group to come back with the items that we've requested for. Some of them they're going to have to put together. We will have we will have another meeting, and we will certainly let you know when it is. I do have two more things in the chat that I do want to address. I've had multiple people come through in the last few seconds letting us know that zoning allows for facilities that are used for the transfer of goods from land to waterborne vessels, and that people question that they do not believe that exempts the 55-foot height limit for the storage of boats themselves. So they're asking if you could address the zoning aspect of the 55-foot height building.
Certainly I would, instead of, getting into the different zoning arguments here, I would say, we have a good team of, zoning professionals and engineers and everything else, so we can provide that information. But, we have certainly studied it all and are familiar with what the different allowances are for the different zonings. So, I think probably the best way to go about that would maybe be to provide something to you all.
Okay. Just a reminder that the next meeting will be our monthly meeting in August. There will be an election, and the date of that meeting, I'm looking it up as fast as I humanly can. That meeting would be on the 14th, also on Zoom. Or just to let people know, we did have two people in the chat who self-identified as being interested in helping us do a hybrid meeting. If anyone else is interested, please email us at board@jeffreyspoint.org. We are not opposed. We simply do not want to commit unless we are confident that we can do a quality meeting that people can engage in. Before COVID, the JPNA, we averaged 40 to 60 people a meeting, which by the way, the city of Boston considered that an amazing turnout. And we have broken 100 and 110 for regular meetings on a regular basis. So families, especially families with children, have really appreciated having the option of having a hybrid meeting. I apologize to everyone, both who mailed in questions and in the chat, who we are not able to address. However, we are shedding people incredibly quickly. And so I'm concerned that if we continue to ask questions and people are not here to hear them, that we are not having the impact that we would really like. As always, we are reachable at board@jeffreyspoint.org. A copy of this recording, along with the meeting minutes, will be posted sometime before next Monday at www.jeffreyspoint.org. And we thank you very much for being here this evening. Officially, questions are done, and I'm going to turn off the recording. People are welcome to stay if they would like. You can look at me all you want. I'm fine with that. But otherwise, I will hope you have a wonderful evening and stay hydrated. And remember to water your trees because it is hot. And if you do not water them, they will die. And that will be very sad. Have a good evening. How do I turn off this damn recording?
There's the three little dots and next to chat.